Perhaps tonight arrives like any other evening. The world slowly becomes quieter outside the window. The lights from nearby homes begin to soften. The sounds of passing cars become more distant. The room remains still, holding the gentle feeling of a day coming to an end. Ethan Parker sits near the open window and watches the night sky. A warm cup of tea rests beside him. The steam rises slowly before disappearing into the quiet air. Maybe you may notice these small moments when everything begins to slow. The unfinished tasks of the day remain somewhere in the background. The conversations, the plans, the thoughts that have followed him from morning until now. They are still there. Yet tonight, Ethan does not reach for them immediately. He simply sits and listens. A cool breeze enters through the open window. It carries the scent of damp earth from a recent evening rain. Somewhere outside, tree branches move gently beneath the moonlight. Their leaves create a soft sound that fills the quiet spaces. Perhaps the night is not asking anything from him. Perhaps it is simply offering a place to pause. Ethan looks at the trees beyond his window. Their shapes move slowly against the dark sky. Some branches reach upward. Some leaves fall gently toward the ground. Everything follows a natural rhythm. Maybe you may notice how the trees do not hurry toward tomorrow. They simply remain where they are, breathing with the changing air. Ethan takes a slow breath. He notices the feeling of the chair beneath him, the warmth of the tea nearby, the quiet movement of the breeze against his face. Simple things that are often overlooked during busy days. It is possible that peace sometimes begins in these small moments of noticing, not as something distant, not as something to chase, just a quiet space that appears when we allow ourselves to be present. Ethan has spent many nights like this before, sitting with a tired mind that continued moving long after the day had ended. He often carried tomorrow into today. He often held onto thoughts that were asking only to be gently acknowledged. Tonight feels slightly different. Maybe not because the world has changed. Perhaps because he is allowing himself to listen more closely. A small sound comes from outside. The gentle movement of leaves, the quiet rhythm of the wind passing through the trees. Ethan opens the window a little wider. The night air enters softly. He closes his eyes for a moment and breathes with it. The breeze does not force its way into the room. It simply arrives. It moves. It leaves. Perhaps there is something peaceful in the way nature does not struggle with each passing moment. Ethan looks toward the path beyond his home. The trees stand quietly under the moonlight. A narrow road leads toward the darker edge of the neighborhood, where the sounds of daily life become softer. He feels a gentle curiosity, not a need to escape, not a search for something missing. Maybe only a quiet invitation to walk and notice. Ethan puts on his coat and turns off the unnecessary lights. The room becomes softer. The open window remains behind him, allowing the night air to continue flowing through the space. He steps outside and looks up at the sky. The moon rests between scattered clouds. The streets are calm. The earth beneath his feet feels steady. Perhaps this small walk is simply a way of returning to the present moment. Ethan begins walking toward the quiet path ahead. The familiar lights of home slowly fade behind him. The trees become closer. The night becomes deeper. And beyond the last gentle glow of the neighborhood, a wooden gate waits beneath the moonlight, surrounded by still trees and a path covered with fallen leaves. Perhaps the first step beyond the familiar road feels quieter than Ethan Parker expected. The wooden gate stands beneath the moonlight, resting between two old trees at the edge of the forest. Its surface carries small marks from many seasons. Rain has touched the wood. Wind has passed over it. Time has softened its edges. Ethan places his hand gently on the handle and pauses for a moment. Maybe you may notice how some beginnings arrive without needing a grand moment. Sometimes they begin with a simple pause, a breath, a small decision to move a little slower. Ethan looks back toward the neighborhood behind him. The warm lights from the houses remain in the distance. The sounds of everyday life are still there. The conversations, the routines, the quiet responsibilities waiting for tomorrow. Perhaps he is not leaving them behind. Maybe he is only creating a little space between himself and the noise. The night air moves softly around him. It carries the scent of wet earth and leaves. A gentle breeze passes through the trees, creating a quiet rhythm above the path. Ethan opens the wooden gate. The old hinges make a soft sound in the stillness. He steps forward slowly. The forest path begins beneath his feet. Fallen leaves cover the ground. Some are golden beneath the moonlight. Some are dark from the evening rain. Each leaf rests naturally where it has landed. Ethan walks carefully, noticing the small sounds beneath his steps. The leaves move slightly. The earth feels soft. The air feels cooler between the trees. Perhaps this path has welcomed many quiet walks before his own. Maybe other people have stood here with their own thoughts and gentle hopes. Ethan follows the trail deeper into the forest. The wooden gate becomes smaller behind him. The lights of the neighborhood slowly disappear. The trees begin to surround him with their quiet presence. Their branches reach toward the sky. Their roots remain hidden beneath the earth. Ethan looks upward and notices the spaces between the leaves. Small pieces of moonlight appear through the branches. The sky is still there above the forest. It is only being seen from a different place now. Maybe you may notice how a change in perspective can make familiar things feel new. Ethan continues walking. His pace is unhurried. He does not know exactly where the path will lead. Yet tonight, that uncertainty feels gentle. The forest does not ask him to understand everything before moving forward. It simply offers the next step. A small bird moves somewhere among the branches. A few leaves fall quietly beside the path. Ethan stops for a moment and watches one leaf slowly turn through the air before resting on the ground. Perhaps there is a quiet beauty in allowing things to arrive in their own time. The leaf does not hold onto the branch forever. The tree does not resist the changing season. Everything follows a natural rhythm. Ethan takes a slow breath. He notices his shoulders beginning to soften. The thoughts from the day are still present. They have not disappeared, but perhaps they feel a little farther away now, like sounds carried by the wind, like clouds moving slowly across the sky. Ethan continues along the forest path beneath the moonlight. The wooden gate remains behind him, standing quietly between the trees. Ahead, the trail curves gently into the deeper woods, where fallen leaves rest beneath the silver glow, and a narrow path disappears into the peaceful shadows beyond. Perhaps, after leaving the wooden gate behind, Ethan Parker continues along the quiet forest path beneath the moonlit sky. The sounds of the neighborhood slowly disappear. The gentle hum of distant streets becomes softer. The trees begin to surround him with a deeper silence. Maybe you may notice how a place can feel different when we enter it with patience. Ethan walks slowly, allowing each step to arrive naturally. The path beneath his feet is covered with fallen leaves from many seasons. Some leaves are bright beneath the moonlight. Others rest quietly in the shadows. Each one remains where it has fallen. Ethan notices a few leaves moving gently with the breeze. They turn slightly across the path before settling again. Perhaps there is a quiet rhythm in the way nature lets go. Nothing forces the leaf to stay. Nothing forces the ground to change. Everything follows its own moment. Ethan continues deeper into the forest. The trees stand taller around him. Their branches create soft patterns against the night sky. Small pieces of moonlight touch the path ahead. The light appears and disappears as the wind moves through the leaves. Maybe you may notice how even changing light can feel peaceful when we stop trying to hold it still. Ethan reaches a small clearing beside the trail. A single tree stands near the center of the open space. Around its roots, fallen leaves have gathered naturally. The tree's branches stretch outward quietly. Ethan walks closer and sits near the roots. The ground feels cool beneath him. The scent of the earth remains fresh from the evening rain. He places his hands gently beside him and looks around. Perhaps this moment does not need anything more. The forest continues breathing around him. A soft breeze passes through the branches. A distant sound moves somewhere beyond the trees. Ethan watches one leaf resting near the tree roots. Its edges are slightly curled. Its colors have softened. It carries the quiet marks of time. Maybe you may notice how some things become more beautiful when we allow them to change. Ethan remembers the busy days when he tried to keep everything the same. Plans, expectations, small worries about things that had not happened yet. He often held onto thoughts long after they had served their purpose. Tonight, beside the tree, those thoughts feel lighter. Perhaps they can rest for a while, just like the leaves resting beneath the branches. Ethan closes his eyes and listens. The forest has its own gentle sounds. The movement of leaves, the quiet breathing of the wind, the steady rhythm of the earth beneath him. He does not need to explain these moments. He simply notices them. Maybe peace begins in this kind of attention, not through searching farther, not through reaching harder, simply through returning to what is already present. Ethan opens his eyes and looks at the tree above him. The branches move gently against the sky. The roots remain beneath the earth, unseen but steady. Perhaps there is something comforting about what continues quietly beneath the surface. The tree does not need to show its roots to know they are there. Ethan remains beside the tree for a while longer. The night continues moving around him. The moon rises slowly above the branches. The forest becomes even quieter. After some time, Ethan stands and continues along the path. He leaves the small clearing behind, carrying the feeling of the quiet tree with him. The fallen leaves remain gathered around the roots beneath the moonlight, while one single leaf rests gently on the earth, glowing softly in the silver stillness of the forest night. Perhaps, after leaving the quiet clearing behind, Ethan Parker continues along the forest path beneath the gentle glow of the moon. The old tree becomes smaller behind him, but the feeling of its steady presence remains. The fallen leaves around its roots stay undisturbed. The forest continues its quiet rhythm. Maybe you may notice how some places remain with us through a simple feeling rather than a clear memory. Ethan walks slowly between the trees. The path becomes narrower, and the sounds around him become softer. The wind moves through the branches above. It passes gently, touching each leaf before continuing onward. Ethan stops for a moment and listens. Perhaps the forest is speaking in a language made of movement and silence. The leaves do not resist the wind. The branches do not hold onto each passing breeze. They move together. They soften. They return to stillness. Ethan takes a slow breath and continues walking. The cool night air enters gently. His steps become quieter. His shoulders feel lighter than when he first entered the forest. The thoughts that followed him earlier still appear from time to time. A memory, a small concern, a plan for tomorrow. But maybe they no longer feel like things he needs to carry. Perhaps they can simply pass through, like the wind moving through the trees. Ethan follows the path until he reaches a small wooden bridge crossing over a narrow stream. The bridge is simple and weathered. Its wooden boards show the marks of rain and changing seasons. Ethan steps onto the bridge slowly. Beneath him, the water flows quietly over smooth stones. The moon's reflection moves across the surface. It stretches. It breaks. It returns again. Maybe you may notice how the water never tries to keep one shape. It simply follows the path before it. Ethan rests his hands on the wooden railing and watches the stream below. A few leaves float gently with the current. Some move quickly. Some pause near the stones before continuing forward. Perhaps each leaf has its own rhythm. Ethan remembers the leaf beneath the old tree, the way it rested without struggle, the way it belonged to that moment exactly as it was. Maybe the stream and the leaf are not so different. Both allow change. Both continue without needing to know the entire journey ahead. Ethan remains on the bridge for a while. The forest surrounds him with quiet patience. The sound of water blends with the sound of wind above. Everything moves together. The bridge beneath him remains steady, while the stream below continues flowing. Perhaps you may notice how peace can exist between movement and stillness. Ethan looks toward the path on the other side of the bridge. It disappears gently between the trees. He cannot see where it leads, yet the uncertainty feels softer now. Maybe not knowing everything can also create space. Space to observe, space to breathe, space to continue. Ethan crosses the bridge slowly. Each wooden step creates a quiet sound beneath his feet. The lantern lights of the distant world are no longer visible. Only the forest remains around him. The trees, the water, the gentle air. He walks onward without rushing. Perhaps the journey is not about arriving somewhere far away. Maybe it is about noticing each moment along the way. Ethan reaches the other side of the bridge and continues into the deeper woods. Behind him, the stream flows beneath the old wooden boards, carrying a single fallen leaf beneath the moonlight. As the reflection of the stars gently moves across the quiet water. Perhaps after crossing the old wooden bridge, Ethan Parker continues along the forest path with a quieter step. The sound of the stream slowly fades behind him, yet the gentle rhythm of the water remains somewhere within his thoughts. The forest becomes deeper around him. Tall trees rise on both sides of the path. Their branches reach upward, creating a peaceful roof beneath the night sky. Maybe you may notice how silence can feel different when we stop trying to fill it. Ethan walks beneath the trees and listens. The wind moves softly through the branches. A few leaves fall slowly through the air. They turn gently before reaching the earth. Nothing seems hurried. The forest simply continues. Ethan follows the narrow trail until he notices a small opening between the trees. In the center stands a clear stream flowing over smooth stones. The water reflects the moonlight in small moving patterns. Ethan steps closer and sits beside the stream. The ground feels cool beneath him. The scent of moss and wet earth surrounds the quiet space. Perhaps this place feels like a natural pause in the journey. The stream does not stop moving, yet it carries a sense of calm. Ethan watches the water pass around the stones. Some currents move quickly. Some areas remain almost still. The surface changes with every small movement of the breeze. Maybe you may notice how the water does not fight its own path. It simply follows what is before it. Ethan places his hand near the edge of the stream. The water touches his fingertips briefly before continuing onward. The feeling is gentle and temporary. He watches small circles appear on the surface and slowly disappear. Perhaps moments are sometimes like these ripples. They arrive, they move, they return to stillness. Ethan looks into the reflection of the moon above the water. The image shifts whenever the stream moves, yet the moon remains present. Maybe there is a quiet comfort in knowing that some things can change without being lost. Ethan breathes slowly beside the stream. The worries from earlier in the evening feel more distant now. They have not vanished completely. Perhaps they have simply become softer, like distant sounds carried through the forest. A small branch moves above him. The leaves create a gentle whisper. Ethan looks upward and observes the trees. Their roots remain hidden beneath the ground. Their branches continue reaching toward the sky. They grow through seasons of rain, wind, warmth, and cold. Maybe you may notice how the trees allow every season to arrive. They do not hurry through one moment to reach another. Ethan sits quietly for a while longer. The stream continues flowing beside him. The moon continues its slow journey across the sky. The forest remains awake in its own peaceful way. A small insect moves across a nearby stone. A drop of water falls from a leaf above. The night holds each sound gently. Perhaps peace is found in these ordinary moments of attention, not through searching for something distant, maybe through noticing what has quietly been present all along. Ethan stands and looks once more at the stream. He follows the path forward, leaving the water behind, but carrying its rhythm with him. The trail curves deeper into the forest. The trees become taller. The air becomes cooler. Ahead, a faint glow appears between the branches, where a small lantern rests beside the path, casting a warm circle of light upon the moss-covered ground. Perhaps after leaving the quiet stream behind, Ethan Parker follows the forest path toward the soft glow waiting between the trees. The light becomes warmer as he walks closer. It does not shine brightly. It does not demand attention. It simply rests gently upon the ground. Maybe you may notice how a small light can feel comforting when surrounded by darkness. Ethan approaches the lantern beside the path. It sits on a flat stone covered with soft moss. The glass is slightly weathered. The wooden handle carries small marks from time and use. A gentle flame moves inside, breathing with the quiet air around it. Ethan stands nearby and watches the light for a moment. Perhaps this simple lantern feels like an old companion waiting patiently in the forest. He sits beside it and allows the silence to return. The trees surround him. The stream continues somewhere behind him. The night remains calm above the branches. Ethan places his hands near the warmth of the lantern. The light touches his fingers softly. It reminds him of the warmth inside his home, the warmth of a quiet room, and the warmth of a moment without hurry. Maybe you may notice how a small light does not need to remove all darkness. It only creates a gentle space to see what is already there. Ethan looks around the forest. The lantern reveals small details nearby. A patch of green moss growing beside a stone, tiny drops of water resting on leaves, the delicate patterns on the bark of an old tree, things that were always present, waiting quietly to be noticed. Perhaps the night has not changed. Maybe his way of seeing has simply become softer. Ethan watches the flame move slightly as the breeze passes through the trees. The light bends. It returns. It continues. He remembers the many evenings when his mind felt crowded with thoughts, moments from the past, questions about the future, small worries that followed him through ordinary days. Tonight, he does not push them away. He allows them to appear and pass gently, like clouds moving across the moon. Maybe you may notice how the flame does not fight the wind. It moves with it. It adjusts. It remains. Ethan sits quietly beside the lantern for a long while. The forest around him feels vast, yet he does not feel alone. The trees stand nearby. The earth supports him beneath the moss. The night sky stretches above. Perhaps there is comfort in being part of something larger and quieter than our own thoughts. Ethan takes a slow breath. The air feels cool and clean. He listens to the small sounds around him. The distant stream, the moving branches, the soft crackle of the flame. Each sound arrives and disappears naturally. Nothing needs to stay forever. Ethan lifts the lantern carefully and begins walking again. The warm light moves with him along the forest path. It creates a small circle of brightness around each step. The deeper woods remain dark beyond the edges of the glow, yet the path ahead feels peaceful. Maybe the next step does not need to be completely visible. Perhaps it only needs enough light to arrive. Ethan continues walking slowly between the trees. The lantern sways gently in his hand. Shadows move across the forest floor. The flame reflects quietly on the glass as the moonlight touches the leaves above, and the small lantern glows beside the winding path beneath the endless night sky. Perhaps, after carrying the lantern through the deeper woods, Ethan Parker continues along the quiet forest path beneath the gentle moonlight. The small circle of warmth moves with him, touching the ground with each careful step. The trees around him remain still and patient. Their shadows stretch softly across the path. Maybe you may notice how a little light can change the feeling of a place without changing the place itself. Ethan walks slowly, allowing the lantern to guide only the next few steps ahead. The forest beyond the glow remains hidden. Yet tonight, that unknown space feels less distant. The path continues naturally before him. Ethan reaches a small clearing surrounded by tall trees. In the center, a large stone rests beneath an open space in the branches. He places the lantern beside the stone and sits quietly. The flame creates a warm reflection on the nearby leaves. The sounds of the forest gather around him. The soft movement of branches, the distant flow of water, the gentle breath of the night air. Perhaps this moment is not asking him to discover something new. Maybe it is simply allowing him to notice what has already been here. Ethan looks at the lantern and watches the flame move inside the glass. It remains bright, but never forceful. It does not push away the darkness around it. It simply offers a small place of warmth. You may notice how some forms of peace feel like this: quiet, gentle, present. Ethan rests his hands on his knees and breathes slowly. The forest air enters and leaves naturally. His thoughts continue to appear. A memory from earlier years, a conversation from yesterday, a small concern about tomorrow. But perhaps they are no longer heavy. Maybe they are like shadows passing near the lantern, visible for a moment, then softly changing shape. Ethan looks toward the trees beyond the light. The darkness between them is deep, but not empty. Small sounds continue within it. A bird moving through the branches, a leaf touching the ground, the quiet movement of life continuing unseen. Perhaps there are many things growing and flowing, even when we cannot observe them. Ethan remains beside the lantern for a long time. He does not measure the minutes. He does not wonder how much farther he needs to go. The forest seems to hold this pause gently. The earth beneath him feels steady. The sky above him feels wide. Maybe you may notice how rest can appear when we stop asking the moment to become something else. Ethan eventually stands and lifts the lantern again. He looks at the path ahead. The light reveals the next section of the trail. Nothing more is required. One step, then another. He begins walking once more. The lantern moves quietly beside him. The flame responds to the gentle movement of his hand. It bends slightly with each step, then returns. Ethan passes beneath tall branches covered with small drops of morning mist. The night is slowly beginning to soften. Somewhere beyond the trees, the first signs of dawn are waiting. Perhaps the darkness was never something to overcome. Maybe it was simply a space where a small light could be appreciated. Ethan continues forward with the lantern in his hand. Behind him, the clearing grows quiet again. With the warm glow of the lantern resting beside the stone, surrounded by moss, leaves, and the gentle shadows of the sleeping forest. And perhaps, after walking beneath the tall trees with the lantern in his hand, Ethan Parker notices a softer feeling in the forest around him. The path continues quietly through the woods. The flame beside him moves gently with each step. The darkness remains, but it feels different now. Maybe you may notice how a small sense of calm can change the way we experience a place. Ethan follows the winding trail until he reaches a hidden garden beyond the trees. It rests in a quiet corner of the forest, protected by old branches and soft moss. The moonlight touches the leaves and flowers gently. Small plants grow beside smooth stones. A narrow path leads between them. Ethan enters slowly, carrying the lantern close. The warm light reveals small details around the garden. Tiny flowers opening beneath the night sky. Leaves holding drops of water. New green stems rising from the earth. Perhaps this garden has been growing quietly for many seasons. It does not hurry. It does not compare itself with the trees nearby. It simply grows in its own way. Ethan walks toward a small flower bud near the center of the garden. It remains closed beneath the moonlight. Its petals are folded gently inward. He sits beside it and observes quietly. Maybe you may notice how some things reveal themselves only when the time feels right. The flower does not force itself open. It does not worry about becoming something else. It rests within its own natural rhythm. Ethan places the lantern beside him. The warm light touches the flower softly. The garden becomes a quiet space between earth and sky. The sounds around him are gentle. A small insect moves through the leaves. The wind passes through the branches above. Somewhere nearby, water moves slowly over stones. Ethan takes a deep breath. He remembers moments when he wanted life to move faster, when he wished certain answers would appear sooner, when he compared his own path with the paths of others. But sitting here, beside the small flower bud, those thoughts seem quieter. Perhaps growth has its own timing. Maybe each moment carries something unseen beneath the surface. Ethan looks around the garden. Some flowers have already opened. Others remain closed. Some leaves are large and full. Others are still becoming. Yet every part of the garden belongs. Nothing appears to be behind. Nothing appears to be ahead. You may notice how nature does not measure itself against another season. It simply continues. Ethan gently touches the earth beside the flower. The soil feels cool and soft. He feels the quiet connection between his hand and the ground beneath him. Perhaps there is comfort in remembering that we are also part of this natural rhythm. We also have moments of opening, moments of resting, moments of simply becoming. Ethan remains in the garden for some time. The lantern burns calmly beside him. The small flower bud stays closed, holding its quiet promise. He does not wait for it to change. He simply appreciates its presence. Maybe peace can exist even before something fully unfolds. Ethan eventually lifts the lantern and stands. He walks slowly along the garden path, leaving the flowers behind. The trees surrounding the garden remain still. The night continues flowing gently toward morning. Ethan follows the trail ahead, carrying the warmth of the lantern with him. Behind him, the hidden garden rests beneath the moonlight, where a single unopened flower bud holds a small drop of water that reflects the quiet stars above. Perhaps after leaving the hidden garden behind, Ethan Parker continues along the forest path with the lantern glowing softly beside him. The small flower bud remains beneath the moonlight, resting quietly in its own time. Ethan does not look back with sadness. Maybe he carries the feeling of the garden with him, like a gentle breeze that stays for a while after passing through the trees. The forest path slowly opens into a wider area. The trees become fewer, and the sound of the night becomes softer. Ethan notices a wooden bench beneath an old tree at the edge of a peaceful clearing. The bench appears simple and weathered. Its surface carries the marks of rain, sunlight, and passing seasons. Perhaps many quiet moments have rested here before. Ethan walks toward the bench and places the lantern beside it. The warm light spreads gently across the wooden surface. He sits down and looks across the clearing. The grass moves softly with the breeze. Small flowers grow along the edges of the path. Above him, the branches create a quiet frame around the stars. Maybe you may notice how some places invite us to stop without asking anything from us. Ethan rests his hands calmly and allows himself to simply be there. He does not search for another sign. He does not wonder what should happen next. The forest continues around him. The wind moves. The leaves sway. The night breathes. Perhaps this moment is a kind of return, not a return to a place, but a return to a quieter way of being. Ethan watches the lantern flame beside him. It has traveled through the forest. It has rested near streams. It has illuminated flowers and paths. Now it sits beside him, offering a small circle of warmth. Maybe you may notice how rest can feel like this, a gentle place where nothing needs to be improved. Ethan closes his eyes for a moment. He listens to the sounds around him, the distant stream, the movement of branches, the soft sound of the night air passing through the grass. His breathing becomes slower. His thoughts become softer. They still appear, but they no longer ask for his attention in the same way. Perhaps they are like clouds moving across the sky, present for a moment, then continuing onward. Ethan opens his eyes and looks at the old tree above him. Its branches extend widely across the clearing. Its roots remain deep beneath the earth. The tree offers shade during the day and shelter during the night. It does not hurry toward anything. It simply stands and grows. Maybe you may notice how the tree and the bench share a quiet relationship. One provides a place to rest, the other provides a place to sit. Together, they create a small space of peace without needing to explain anything. Ethan gently places his hand on the wooden bench. The surface feels smooth from years of touch and weather. He appreciates the small signs of time within the wood, the tiny cracks, the softened edges, the natural changes that have taken place slowly. Perhaps there is beauty in things that have been allowed to become what they are. Ethan remains there beneath the tree. The lantern continues glowing beside him. The forest slowly moves toward morning. The darkness begins to soften slightly. Somewhere in the distance, the first birds begin to stir. Ethan does not stand immediately. He stays for a little longer, watching the quiet world around him. Maybe this pause is enough. The bench remains beneath the old tree, holding the warm lantern light, while a few fallen leaves rest gently across the wooden seat beneath the fading stars. Perhaps after resting beneath the old tree, Ethan Parker continues along the forest path as the night slowly begins to soften. The lantern remains beside him, carrying a gentle warmth through the quiet woods. The wooden bench stays behind beneath the branches, holding the memory of a peaceful pause. Maybe you may notice how some moments continue with us even after we leave them. Ethan walks slowly toward the first signs of morning. The air feels cooler now. The sounds of the forest begin to change. The deep quiet of night slowly welcomes new movements. A few birds begin to sing softly from hidden branches. The leaves above him shimmer with tiny drops of mist. Ethan follows a narrow trail until he reaches a small wooden table beside the path. The table rests beneath a simple shelter made from branches and vines. Its surface is aged by rain and sunlight. On the table lies a blank notebook with plain pages waiting quietly. Ethan approaches and places the lantern beside it. The warm light touches the empty pages. Perhaps the blank notebook feels different from the things he once carried. It does not ask him to fill it. It does not ask him to create a perfect answer. It simply remains open. Ethan sits beside the table and looks at the empty page. Maybe you may notice how silence can sometimes hold more space than words. The page has no story yet, no beginning, no ending, only possibility. Ethan gently touches the corner of the notebook. The paper feels smooth beneath his fingers. He remembers the many times he tried to organize every part of his life. He searched for explanations. He looked ahead before fully experiencing the moment in front of him. Perhaps there was always a quiet place between knowing and not knowing. A place where he could simply observe. The forest around him continues waking slowly. The light changes across the trees. The shadows become softer. The mist begins to lift from the ground. Ethan watches a small drop of water slide along a nearby leaf before falling to the earth. It does not hesitate. It does not need to know where it will land. Maybe you may notice how nature often moves without needing a complete plan. Ethan looks again at the blank page. He does not write. He simply allows the page to remain as it is. Perhaps leaving something untouched can also be a form of appreciation. The notebook does not need to become something else to be meaningful. The empty space itself carries a quiet presence. Ethan breathes slowly and listens. The morning sounds become clearer. Birds moving through branches. The soft movement of grass beneath the breeze. The distant stream continuing its gentle flow. Everything around him seems to exist without needing explanation. Maybe peace can sometimes be found in moments where nothing is added. Ethan closes the notebook carefully and places it back on the table. He does not take it with him. He leaves it beneath the shelter, waiting for another quiet moment. Perhaps some things are meant to remain open, allowing each person to discover their own meaning. Ethan lifts the lantern and continues walking along the path. The forest feels brighter now. The night has almost completely faded. The trees stand beneath the early morning light. Ethan moves forward without rushing. He notices the changing colors of the sky between the branches. The trail ahead curves gently toward a wooden bridge in the distance. Behind him, the blank notebook rests on the small table beneath the trees, its empty pages glowing softly with the first golden light of morning. Perhaps after leaving the small wooden table behind, Ethan Parker continues along the forest path as morning slowly enters the woods. The lantern remains in his hand, though its warm glow feels softer beneath the growing light of dawn. The blank notebook stays beneath the trees, resting quietly with its open pages. Maybe you may notice how some moments do not need to be carried physically to remain meaningful. Ethan walks toward the sound of moving water. The path becomes brighter with each step. Sunlight begins to pass through the branches above. The forest that felt mysterious during the night now reveals new details. Small flowers along the trail open toward the morning. Birds move between the trees. The air carries the fresh scent of earth and leaves. Ethan follows the trail until he reaches a wooden bridge crossing a wider stream. The bridge is simple and strong. Its wooden boards show the quiet marks of many seasons. Rain has touched them. Sunlight has warmed them. Time has softened them. Ethan steps onto the bridge slowly. Beneath him, the stream flows steadily toward the valley beyond. Perhaps this bridge has connected many moments before his own. Maybe you may notice how bridges quietly exist between one place and another. They do not stop the river. They do not change the land. They simply offer a way to move forward. Ethan rests his hands on the wooden railing and looks at the water below. The stream reflects the morning sky. Clouds move gently across the surface. The reflection changes with every passing ripple. Yet the sky above remains open and peaceful. Perhaps there is a quiet reminder in this movement. Some things can shift without disappearing. Ethan watches leaves floating beneath the bridge. Some leaves travel quickly with the current. Others circle slowly before continuing onward. Each follows the flow in its own way. Maybe you may notice how the stream does not question where it is going. It simply continues. Ethan breathes deeply and feels the morning air around him. The thoughts that once felt crowded now seem more spacious. They are still part of him, but perhaps they no longer need to lead every moment. He allows them to move gently, like the reflections on the water below. Ethan takes a few steps across the bridge. The sound of his footsteps blends with the quiet movement of the stream. Each step feels simple. Each moment feels enough. Perhaps the journey has never required him to know the entire path. Maybe only the next step has ever been needed. On the other side of the bridge, Ethan pauses and looks back. The wooden bridge rests above the flowing water. The lantern in his hand catches the morning light. For a moment, the small flame inside appears almost invisible beneath the sunrise. Yet, Ethan knows it is still there. Maybe you may notice how some sources of warmth remain even when the world around them becomes brighter. Ethan continues along the trail beyond the bridge. The forest begins to open slowly. More sunlight reaches the ground. The sounds of morning become clearer. The stream continues behind him. The bridge remains quietly where it has always been. Ethan walks toward a wide meadow beyond the trees. The path ahead feels open and gentle. Perhaps this new space is not an ending. Maybe it is simply another moment to observe. Ethan reaches the edge of the meadow as the first full rays of sunlight touch the grass. Behind him, the wooden bridge stands above the flowing stream, with golden light resting on its weathered boards and the morning breeze moving softly through the trees around it. Perhaps, after crossing the wooden bridge, Ethan Parker continues toward the open meadow beyond the trees. The forest slowly becomes wider around him. The tall branches begin to separate, allowing more sunlight to touch the earth. The lantern remains in his hand, though the morning light now surrounds him. Maybe you may notice how some things that guided us through darkness become gentle companions in the brightness. Ethan steps into the meadow and pauses. The grass moves softly beneath the morning breeze. Small flowers grow across the field. Dew rests on their petals, reflecting tiny pieces of sunlight. The sky above feels wide and open. Perhaps this place feels different from the forest paths behind him, not because one is better than the other. Maybe because each place offers a different kind of quiet. Ethan walks slowly across the meadow. He notices the sounds around him, the movement of grass, the distant call of birds, the soft rhythm of the wind passing through the open space. There is no need to hurry. The morning seems to unfold at its own pace. At the center of the meadow, Ethan finds a place where the grass is slightly lower. He sits there and looks toward the horizon. The trees surround the meadow like a peaceful circle. Beyond them, the mountains appear faintly through the morning mist. Perhaps you may notice how wide spaces can create room inside the mind as well. Ethan breathes slowly. He feels the ground beneath him. He feels the warmth of the sunlight reaching his hands. He observes the changing colors of the sky. The blue becomes brighter. The mist becomes lighter. The shadows become softer. Maybe the world has always been moving this way, quietly, patiently, without needing to be rushed. Ethan places the lantern beside him. The flame is still there, small and steady. In the morning light, it no longer appears like a guide through darkness. It feels more like a reminder of the warmth he has carried along the way. Perhaps you may notice how some things change meaning as we continue moving. The lantern, the path, the quiet moments, the places where we paused. Ethan looks across the meadow and remembers the journey through the forest. The wooden gate, the fallen leaves, the old tree, the flowing stream, the small lantern, the hidden garden, the wooden bench, the blank page, the bridge. Each moment remains as a quiet part of the path. Maybe none of them were separate. Perhaps they were all small pieces of the same return. Ethan closes his eyes for a moment. The breeze moves across the meadow. It touches his face gently. He listens without searching for anything. The sounds around him feel complete. A bird singing from a nearby tree, grass moving beneath the wind, the distant stream continuing its journey. Perhaps peace can feel like this, not something that arrives suddenly. Maybe something noticed slowly, like sunlight spreading across the ground. Ethan remains in the meadow as the morning grows brighter. The lantern rests beside him. The grass bends and rises with the breeze. The flowers continue opening toward the light. He does not need to name this moment. He simply allows it to be. After some time, Ethan stands and looks toward the path leading beyond the meadow. The trail ahead is quiet and open. He begins walking again, carrying the lantern gently at his side. Behind him, the meadow remains beneath the morning sky, with dew-covered flowers glowing softly in the sunlight, and a single butterfly resting quietly on a blade of grass before opening its wings. Perhaps, after spending time beneath the open morning sky, Ethan Parker continues walking across the meadow toward the far edge of the forest. The sunlight has fully arrived now. The soft colors of dawn have become brighter. The lantern remains in his hand, though its gentle glow has become almost invisible beside the warmth of the new day. Maybe you may notice how some things guide us quietly, then become part of our own way of seeing. Ethan follows the returning path that leads toward the place where his journey began. The grass beneath his feet feels familiar. The breeze carries the scent of earth and leaves. The trees ahead stand calmly beneath the morning light. Perhaps the forest looks the same, yet something feels slightly different. Not because the trees have changed, not because the path has changed. Maybe because Ethan is noticing them with a softer heart. He walks slowly beneath the branches. The sounds of the forest welcome him again. Birds move through the leaves. The stream continues flowing nearby. The wind travels gently between the trees. Everything continues in its own rhythm. Ethan reaches the wooden gate where he first entered the forest. The old wood is touched by the morning sun. The same marks from rain and seasons remain on its surface. He places his hand on the handle and pauses. Perhaps this gate was never only an entrance to another place. Maybe it was also a quiet reminder that returning can happen within ourselves. Ethan looks back along the path behind him. He remembers the moments of the night, the fallen leaves beneath the moonlight, the old tree with its deep roots, the flowing stream, the lantern beside the dark path, the hidden garden, the wooden bench, the blank notebook, the bridge, the open meadow. Each place offered a quiet moment to observe and breathe. Ethan does not hold on to them tightly. He simply allows them to remain as gentle memories. Maybe you may notice how some experiences stay with us without needing to be explained. Ethan opens the wooden gate and steps through. The familiar road outside the forest appears before him. The world is beginning its morning routines. A distant car passes. A bird sings from a nearby tree. A few windows begin to glow with warm light. Life continues around him. Perhaps peace was never separate from ordinary moments. Maybe it was quietly present within them all along. Ethan walks home at a calm pace. The lantern hangs gently beside him. The forest remains behind, but the feeling of the trees, water, and earth continues within him. He reaches his home as the morning becomes brighter. The open window from the night before is still there. A gentle breeze moves through the room. Ethan places the lantern near the window and looks outside. The trees beyond his home move softly in the wind. They are the same trees he saw before leaving. Yet now he notices the small details, the movement of leaves, the patterns of sunlight, the quiet space between sounds. Perhaps the world has always been offering these moments. Maybe we simply return when we are ready to notice them. Ethan sits beside the window with a warm cup of tea. He watches the morning unfold without needing to change anything. The day begins slowly. The light spreads across the room. The breeze continues flowing through the open window. Outside, a single leaf rests gently on a branch, holding a small drop of water that reflects the golden morning sky. Perhaps the morning continues quietly after Ethan Parker returns home. The open window remains beside him, allowing the gentle air to move through the room. Outside, the trees sway beneath the sunlight. Their leaves carry small movements that feel familiar now. Maybe you may notice how ordinary moments can hold a quiet depth when we allow ourselves to truly see them. Ethan sits near the window with his warm tea resting in his hands. The room is peaceful. The sounds of the morning slowly gather around him. A bird calls from a nearby branch. The breeze moves through the leaves. Somewhere in the distance, the world begins another day. Yet, within this simple moment, there is a softness that was not there before. Perhaps nothing outside has changed. Maybe the difference is in the way Ethan is meeting this moment. The forest journey remains with him, not as a memory he needs to hold tightly, not as a place he needs to return to immediately, more like a quiet presence that continues flowing beneath everyday life. The wooden gate, the fallen leaves, the old tree, the flowing stream, the lantern, the hidden garden, the wooden bench, the blank page, the bridge, the open meadow. Each one remains like a small reflection of something gentle within. Ethan looks at the lantern near the window. The flame is no longer needed to guide him through the darkness. Morning light fills the room now. Still, the lantern remains there quietly. Perhaps some things continue to carry meaning even after their original purpose has passed. Maybe you may notice how gratitude can appear in these small places, in the warmth of a cup of tea, in the sound of leaves moving outside, in the simple feeling of being present. Ethan opens the window a little wider. The fresh air enters softly. It carries the scent of trees, earth, and the changing season. He closes his eyes and breathes slowly. The moment does not ask him to become someone different. It does not ask him to search farther. It simply allows him to remain here. Perhaps peace has always been closer than he imagined. Maybe it was quietly waiting in the spaces between ordinary moments, in the pauses between thoughts, in the gentle rhythm of breathing, in the natural movement of the world around him. Ethan walks outside into the morning garden behind his home. The grass is still covered with small drops of water. Flowers open slowly toward the sunlight. The trees stand quietly, their roots resting deep within the earth. He walks without a destination. He listens to the sounds around him, the birds, the wind, the soft movement of leaves. Maybe you may notice how nature does not hurry to arrive anywhere. It grows, it rests, it changes, it returns. Ethan sits beneath a tree and looks toward the sky. The clouds move slowly above him. The sunlight touches the branches. The earth beneath him feels steady. Perhaps this simple connection is enough for this moment. A quiet return to himself. A quiet return to the earth that has always been beneath his feet. A quiet return to the gratitude found in small things. A quiet return to the inner space where stillness can be noticed. Ethan remains there as the morning continues unfolding. The world moves gently around him. Time passes without needing to be measured. The leaves continue dancing with the breeze. The flowers continue opening toward the light. The sky continues changing above the trees. And in the soft silence of the morning, a single leaf releases from a branch, floating slowly through the golden air before resting gently on the earth beneath the quiet shade of the tree.